previously on Alaskan. Way up north on the beach of the Bering Sea, crew members of the Alaska Gold Expedition have arrived at the Cripple River mining camp and have begun repairing the damage caused by Alaska's harsh winter climate.
It's quite a process, but we've got to sit down in just different stages so we don't run over each other.
The stampeders making their way to the Klondike goldfields have arrived in Skagway.
Gold was at a premium then, kind of like it is right now.
In the midst of these adventurers was notorious conman Soapy Smith. He was attempting to capitalize on the weary and desperate, but that didn't slow the majority, for all they could see ahead of them was the shimmer of gold.
From 1897 to 98, over 60,000 people arrived in Skagway in an attempt to get across the border and get into the Yukon.
Well, there is a difference between the two countries as far as law and law enforcement went. In Canada, you had the Northwest Mounted Police, and of course the Canadian government had the codified law. When the gold was discovered, more mounted police were sent up to the Yukon. So on the Canadian side, things were pretty well regulated, whereas in Skagway, it was a little bit loose up there.
It was required by the Northwest Mounted Police that any stampeder entering into Canada must be equipped with 1 year's worth of provisions. This weighed out to about 2,000 pounds. That's 1 ton worth of food and equipment per person.
So that you wouldn't become a ward of the Canadian government.
There are any number of services which my associates and I provide.
Soapy Smith saw yet another opportunity to swindle the stampeders out of their supplies and money.
Like reliable packers, where a man can have his gear reliably packed up over the White Pass for him, and then he can reliably count on its disappearance.
The packers that would bring the gear up to the White Pass would steal a lot of the gear that was going up there. So when the stampeders got up there, they'd have no gear up there.
Upon arriving by ship to the Skagway-Dyea area, it would take around 3 months to transport this amount of gear 30 miles over the mountain passes. By far, the most challenging and infamous section of the Chilkoot Trail was the Golden Staircase. Its final steps led stampeders right to the Canadian border.
The conditions were pretty rough. They were steep. It was hard to climb.
The problem is at the very peak of the gold rush, there were so many people going over.
It was pretty much back-to-back people. It looks like a continuous line of humanity going up the golden stairs.
Like a mass of wild buffalo or bison. They were on a mass stampede. They just had to get to the gold.
All these people had to carry their own year's worth of supplies, about 2,000 pounds worth, over the pass by themselves by relaying it back and forth.
That was usually, 50 trips up the pass.
Each person carrying on an average of 50 pounds on their back, walking on stairs that had been cut into the ice.
That's 3 miles. It's about a 2,600-foot vertical rise, and there are parts of it where you're actually doing scrambling.
When you would deposit your load on the Canadian side, it would be checked off by the Mounties, and then you would slide back down and pick up another bundle and carry it up the stairs.
And there were several places where you could step out of line and rest.
If you fell out of line, if you had to take a break for something, sometimes it would be hours before you could actually get back in the line to start climbing again.
Because everybody was so intent on being the next person up there, and they wouldn't let you in.
There was a lot of competition basically to get there first, to get the good claims. So it was pretty hard going.
The same spirit of discovery that was present within all the Stampeders is alive today as the crew of the Alaska Gold Expedition continue to prepare the Cripple River Mining Camp for a summer of gold. The barge, which contains all the provisions and equipment to successfully open the mining camp, is within sight off the coast of Nome. While this is a great sign for the crew of the Alaska expedition, it's a welcome sign to the entire population of Nome as well.
This is our voyage number 3, originates in Seattle, Washington, then makes the trip up to Anchorage. From there it went to Dutch Harbor, and from Dutch Harbor up into Bethel, discharged some cargo there in Bethel, and then came around the corner here to Nome.
This year the barge was actually on time, maybe even a little bit early. We never know what to expect as far as that goes because there's ice out there that sometimes takes until mid-June to break up.
Oftentimes there's sea ice between Bethel and up into Norton Sound here to get into Nome. You know, we have a fleet of tugboats and fleet of barges and just make the trip. We've got experienced captains and crews and we do it as efficiently as we can.
After a long frozen winter, the materials on this floating craft will supply the town for months to come.
The spring barge is definitely a kind of sign that the summer's coming and ice has gone away, temperatures are warming up.
The barge has successfully docked at the Port of Nome, and knowing the importance of its contents, the crew at Northland Services do not waste any time unloading it.
We have everything on here from autos to ATVs, building materials, dry goods for the grocery stores, lumber, plywood, sheetrock, you name it, we probably have it on there.
Meanwhile, back at the Cripple River Mining Camp, the crew members are struggling to find a fix to their generator problems.
When we were firing up the generator for the first time that powers the entire property, it actually fried.
What typically happens every year is there's usually some type of maintenance problems that gets created over the winters. The winters are extreme up here, down to minus 40, minus 50.
In Nome, Alaska, you just can't get everything up here that you can get in the lower 48 as fast. And when a generator goes out, especially a big generator that you just can't go to Sears and buy another one.
It looks like it's off center just a bit.
We're gonna blow it out fast. Give me that drill bit.
When we come back, the crew members will start transporting the camp's provisions down the beach. We'll also continue looking at the struggles the stampeders of the Great Klondike Gold Rush faced while making their journey to the gold fields.
Gold. It has lured adventurers and dreamers for centuries. Its glimmer speaks of fortunes and unexplored frontiers. Imagine if you could be part of this grand adventure. Imagine if you could seek out your own fortune. With the Gold Prospectors Association of America, you can. When you join our ranks, you become part of a community that shares your passion for prospecting. You gain access to resources, expert guides, and exclusive claims. Whether you're a seasoned prospector or just starting out, our association offers a wealth of knowledge and opportunities. We host exciting events, offer education and training, and provide tools to help you strike gold. But it's not just about the gold. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery, and the friendships forged along the way. So, are you ready to embark on your own gold prospecting adventure? Your journey starts here.
Get ready to go get her this morning and let the adventures begin, huh?
Word was sent that the containers have been unloaded from the barge and are ready to be picked up.
I just soon get the heck out of here and get back, because I've had some 12-hour days trying to get a container in here. When I get the load, that's when I got the problem, because it's pretty soft beach. That's when it becomes fun for them.
Getting stuff 13 miles down the beach, especially when you got 20 or 30 or 40,000 pounds of cargo that you're trying to pull on a trailer, isn't particularly easy on a smooth beach.
We come out here with about 12, 15 people. Each person has their own individual job. Mine is getting everything, all the supplies and logistics from town out here.
We pull the containers out of Northland, pull them out here and unload them. And it's quite a deal.
This is the moment Ralph Yeager has been waiting for. It's a chance to fire up the Foremost and get to work.
She's a pretty old machine. I've made quite a few trips with the old Foremost. So far, over 300 miles running back and forth to Nome, hauling our supplies.
As far as overall ordering for this year, it was a little bit heavier than usual because we had a pretty big increase in the number of participants that came up. But the main reason for making more loads is just breaking it down to make it so that the Foremost can pull without getting stuck.
Hope I get in for dinner tonight. Oh, it's too late. Forget that. It's too late. Didn't have dinner last night either. So it's 11 o'clock.
That's all right. We'll make it. We'll get in by dark.
It's about a 1970, in the 70s model year, and we're still keeping it together and still making her work. She's been a pretty old faithful machine for out here.
Ralph Yeager has arrived back at Cripple River with the first container, and everyone who's still at the main camp stops what they're doing to help unload.
When the containers get here, they're plumb full of stuff. I mean, there's stacked from floor to ceiling, all the way from front to back, and I mean, that's our whole season worth of things. When it gets here, we got a team of just about anybody that sees that thing pull up comes down there to give us a hand to unload it. We got parts and pieces for every department in camp.
As the winter months progressed, most people fought the trail themselves, while others hired native packers or utilized the tram system that was developed.
And that was very expensive. The natives were making sometimes up to $100 a day in 1897 and 1898 dollars.
The natives warned stampeders of the real possibility of an avalanche and abandoned the scene.
But the prospectors often didn't have a lot of stock in what the natives were doing.
They were ill prepared. They thought they were going to California. The gold rush had just concluded there, and they thought they were going to be in orange and peach trees.
But they have no idea what's in store for them up on that trail. Dawson City is 500 miles away, and along that trail the snow is sometimes 20 feet deep. Winds howling 50 miles an hour, temperatures down to 70 below.
The stampeders, stricken with gold fever, did not listen and continued packing their goods over the pass.
61 people lost their lives at that point.
Most of them that got to the top of the Chilkoot Pass suddenly realized they had another 500 miles of wilderness.
When we come back, we'll see how the possibility of a railroad changed the game in Skagway, ending the tenure of its most recognized villain.
Right from the very beginning, people and companies were trying to find the easiest way to get over these mountains.
There was a number of investors looking to invest, make money in the gold rush. They sent a team to Skagway to see about the possibilities of building a railroad.
And the whole idea was to get people and their supplies over these mountains as quickly and efficiently and as cheaply as they possibly could.
The announcement of a railroad being constructed from Skagway to Whitehorse promised to open several doors, while closing a few in its wake.
Soapy Smith and his gang basically ran Skagway. They had the deputy marshal on the payroll, so the law enforcement that existed turned a blind eye to what was going on.
Basically, Soapy controlled anything going in and out of Skagway. When the railroad came in, that was going to be the new thing, and they wanted to get Soapy out of control so that they can have control of that.
About 500 Skagway citizens, including the legendary Frank Reed, met up to conspire against Soapy's control.
They're in the middle of another one of their meetings. They're trying to decide what to do about me. Decide. Hell, they're armed to the teeth. I think they've already decided. Well, you know what? I decide. And I've decided to put a stop to their whining and their sniveling and their damn secret meeting.
So there were some folks in Skagway who took exception to the way Soapy was controlling the town.
Basically, they wanted to get rid of Soapy, so they were holding a meeting to gather a mass down at the wharf and for support to get rid of Soapy.
Frank Reed thinks he can take this town from me. Not while I live.
Jefferson Randolph!
So Soapy actually went down to talk them out of ganging up on him.
He came down to the front of the wharf with his rifle.
Tried to stop the meeting. Someone got in his way at the wharf and he pushed them off the dock. Frank Reed pulled his pistol. Soapy got off a shot.
And Soapy fired. Frank fired.
Wounded Frank Reed, and 12 days later, Reed was dead. Soapy was shot through the heart.
Soapy had only been here for, what, 8 months before he met his demise. Wasn't even here a year, you know? And yet he has just this huge reputation.
So that was the shootout that ended Soapy's life and also ended his gang's life.
In a single fateful night, Skagway was rid of Soapy Smith's lawless reign.
Problem solved.
The White Pass Yukon Route Railroad affords people the opportunity to travel back in time and follow in the footsteps of the stampeders of long ago.
The railroad was completed in 1899, so the majority of people who were heading into the Yukon for the Klondike Gold Rush were not able to take advantage of the White Pass and Yukon route.
It was a hardship that nobody reckoned, and those times are immortalized by the men and women who are passionate about the preservation of such a great time in history.
Well, like anything, it's a tradition that if you don't maintain it, it's going to be lost.
By the spring of 1898, tent cities have been erected on the shores of Lake Lindeman and Lake Bennett in Canada's British Columbia. The stampeders of the Klondike will continue facing a long road of challenges standing between them and their dreams for riches.
So many thousands of people were willing to leave their homes and their jobs and their families behind for the elusive promise of riches in a place they had really no concept of what they were getting into.
People came to this part of the world to disappear, and you could do that. Get away from the law, bad marriage, the world. A lot of people come to Alaska today to get away from that hustle and bustle of urbanized lower 48.
Meanwhile, up in Nome, Alaska, Cripple River's outer camps are beginning to show signs of life. Ketchmark, a small oasis about 16 miles inland from the main camp, is known to contain an abundance of large coarse gold. Spike Littlejohn is the caretaker of this camp, and his passion for adventure and discovery is apparent to all that cross his path.
I'm from South Carolina. I've been coming to Cripple River since 1999. Used to be the plumber in camp, and now I got the greatest job in the world. I'm the caretaker at Ketchmark. The first year I ever spent up here, I spent right up here in this area, and I understand the camp country. I love it. I know where the gold is. I just like it up here. It's mostly high banker camp and panning and that kind of thing. It's a little different than the other camps in that way, but we got chunky gold, nice gold up here, so people enjoy getting up here and finding it.
Spike is working tirelessly to ensure the most successful summer possible to all of Ketchmark's future prospectors.
My whole purpose is to take those participants down the hill and put them in gold and make them happy. And I spend a lot of time prospecting, but I'm just looking for new spots to put those folks in. So that's kind of the way we do it.
The dredge camp at Arctic Creek is currently undergoing a similar transformation from a winter ghost town to a prospector's paradise.
Arctic Creek's a real special place. It's real peaceful, a lot of wildlife. It's just a great place to be. I try to stay out here in the sticks as much as possible.
Some of the participants' trips to Nome can be as short as 1 week. To ensure they are able to make the best use of their time, Toby Curry, caretaker at Arctic Creek, is actively seeking the best possible pay streaks for the placement of future dredgers.
Well, this year we're running a participant-based camp. Everything is orientated towards educating the participants and giving them the knowledge and all the safety tips they need to get themselves some good gold. We've kind of changed the angle a little bit to focus more on the participants and keeping them happy and making sure they're getting really good gold.
Back at the main camp, the first container has been unloaded and Ralph has set out for a second load. This one is quickly proving to be a little more difficult than the first.
There are times when I do get stuck where I can't dig it out. You have to bring out the backhoe, hopefully be able to drag me up on some hard ground.
Everything changes on that beach from day to day. Every time the tide goes in and out, sometimes it'll bring wood in, sometimes it don't. You never know what it's going to bring in every time the tide goes in and out here.
A light load's not too bad, but it's a tough job for that old foremost. It's got a little bitty engine in it.
Digging that thing out is more than just getting a number 2 shovel. We had to get out there with some heavy equipment. After a few hours, they were able to get it out and get it into camp.
So it's not a picnic exactly, just driving in and out of here with this stuff.
We had a lot more loads to take this year to get stuff out to camp, but you know, we always find a way to make it work up here, and that's exactly what we did.
Still to come on Alaskan. Tensions are high as the exhausted crew worry about a busted generator in a worn-down camp. Meanwhile, the crew at the outer camps are isolated in Alaska's backcountry with absolutely no contact to the outside world. We're also going to find out what was awaiting the stampeders of the Klondike Gold Rush as they reach the end of the mountain passes. Continue to educate yourself on the Klondike Gold Rush as well as this modern-day gold rush by visiting AlaskanTheSeries.com.